So hey everyone, again, Jordan Buckner here with Food Bevy, the community to help startups grow from startup to scale. And today's conversation is all about creating your business dashboard with Crisp. And I am joined by three awesome presenters. We have Samantha and Tony from Crisp and Mike from Midday Squares, who I've known for a while now, and excited to jump through some really cool tools on how you can manage data analytics and decision making for your brand. So with that, Samantha, I'd like to pass it over to you. Oh, before I do first, if anyone has any questions for today, feel free to drop those into the chat and we can get those answered throughout the presentation. Then we'll have some Q&A time at the end. All right, Samantha, over to you.
Cool. Well, thank you, Jordan. I can speak on behalf of Crisp. We are absolutely thrilled to be hosting today's workshop as a Food Bevy partner. It's really been an honor to connect with this type of community and network and see what Jordan has built to really encourage and support emerging brands and founders. It's really something very near and dear to our hearts at Crisp as well. So today, I'll be speaking on the importance of having a data-driven strategy and how Crisp can really help you get there. You'll also hear from current customer and fan favorite Midday Squares and how Mike's team is utilizing the platform to really support that growth. And then last but certainly not least, CPG business line leader here at Crisp, Tony Miller, will give us a little bit of a brief tour of the platform. He's got extensive background in the CPG space, so excited to have you field all your pressing tough questions at him. But first, figured we would get started kind of from the very beginning with a little bit about us and what we do at Crisp. So Crisp was founded by seasoned tech entrepreneurs, really on a mission to solve global food waste by leveraging the power of data. So what we're doing today, Crisp is breaking down those data silos and really streamlining the data compilation process, resulting in that single source of truth across your entire team with actionable insights to really help you achieve your goals. So I'd like to introduce what we call the Crisp Octopus. So what you see on the left-hand side is Crisp automating that manual, tedious process of pulling data from retailers and distributors alike, taking all that data, visualizing it, and then making it highly actionable in real time, all in one place, all at your fingertips. But we show this graphic, and then a lot of emerging brands ask, why does this even matter? So that's kind of the topic of today. Why are successful sales strategies data-driven, and how can Crisp help? So the overview, data really continues to become increasingly influential in driving successful retail strategy. Whether you're at a stage where you're trying to get your foot in the door like an emerging brand, or defend and expand existing distribution in kind of a hyper-growth situation, you're going to need those proof points for buyers to feel really confident about you. And that right now and moving forward is going to require data. So I'm going to talk through a few of these topics and how Crisp can really help you with that kind of winning data-driven strategy. So growing distribution. For growing brands, gaining distribution is obviously a huge priority, but it's not always about growing just anywhere. It's really about finding those areas where your brand has the greatest opportunity and highest chance of success. This is where Crisp really comes into play. So with a clear picture of your existing distribution, sorry, well, something stuck in my throat there. So with that clear picture of your existing distribution and the ability to utilize, to understand those sales trends across locations, you get to identify those hotspots where you clearly have momentum to build upon. That's super key. So from there, you can identify new retailers, geographies, or stores that are similar to where you're seeing that strong market fit. So a lot of the brands that we work with, they can identify down to the zip code and even store locations where they're looking to grow next. And when you can communicate this type of granularity to a buyer, it gives you a huge leg up in a very crowded market. So next thing I want to chat about is how Crisp can help you increase velocity. So your overall sales as a brand is a combination of the number of stores you're in and how fast your product is selling in those stores. Knowing the relationship between these numbers defines your sales strategy. And the quality of your distribution is really important. And the measure of that quality is velocity. At Crisp, we make it really, really easy for brands to identify those hot spots. And one example with one of our customers, Zesty, they actually found when they were utilizing the platform that they had a very slow seller nationwide, but really strong velocity numbers in the Northeast. So what they decided to do based on what they were seeing in the data is optimize their product assortment regionally. And as a result, velocity increased across the board. So tracking velocity can also really help you measure the success of other metrics. For instance, checking the lift or the sales lift after a promotion, which is going to help you evaluate your overall sales and promotional strategy.
Samantha, one thing I really like about velocity is when I talk to most founders, they don't know what their velocity numbers are, right? They might know it in like one store or one location. They're like, yeah, you know, we measured across a couple stores and this is what we think it is. But if you have like no idea what it is as they start to grow beyond 100 stores, right, which is pretty small. And so just having those numbers at your fingertips are really valuable. And I would probably say like a lot of brands find them scary because, you know, some situation they're a lot lower than you might think or want. Or, you know, you might be surprised and there are some stores that are like breakouts. You're like, I had no idea they were selling that well. Like, how can I replicate that? Right? Like just having that data and knowing will allow you to make so many better decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like that same use case with Zesty. They were like, what is going on in the Northeast? Like, it's not happening everywhere else, but like, I know now that I can optimize that opportunity. So velocity is definitely key. And that was actually kind of a perfect segue into our next highlight, which is launching new products. Because this is kind of another area where a lot of brands don't have a lot of visibility and it can be a little intimidating. So Crisp can help you identify those top stores to expand the product line based on sales of similar products in your portfolio. And then once you've set to launch in those stores, real-time data from retailers will also help you understand what is hitting the shelves and when. This is often that really key challenge we hear from brands. They launch in 100 stores. They don't actually know when that rollout is happening, which makes it almost impossible to manage. But with daily data that's helping you track that product as it rolls out, you can really target those advertising efforts to raise that brand awareness. Raising capital. I would say this is something that's really become super hot and relevant as we continue to grow our emerging brands at Crisp. We can help you prepare for raising capital and seeking those new investments. Because not shockingly, investors are just as data-driven as retailers. So Crisp can help you get a handle on those real core metrics that demonstrate your brand's success, but most importantly, the future potential. So we can help you tell a story about product differentiation, you know, unique products that have a distinct brand that can clearly, you know, own a niche in the marketplace. We can help tell a story about momentum, customer engagement. So once you've secured that investment, you'll also need to be ready to scale. And a lot of those manual processes that Crisp solves won't be sustainable anymore. when you scale your business. So we can help you prioritize and keep a high level view of your business to report back to investors. And then managing operations. So to me, this is one of the coolest things about Crisp, because I think it is the foundation of really any successful sales strategy. Having that reliable, timely picture of your top line sales really helps with demand planning and successful production planning. One example that I think is really impactful is with RX Sugar, who is a customer of ours. They were able to go from a 1 day to a 12-week lead time on their raw materials and packaging due to that easy visibility of data in Crisp. So that transparency into inventory and distribution really helps you run a much more cost-effective business. Retailer chargebacks, we also are very aware those can really chip away at the bottom line. So Crisp has a chargebacks dashboard that helps you understand where your deductions are coming from so you can retain your margins and evaluate the impact on trade spend. But one thing I always say is it's kind of like the proof is in the pudding, or in this case, the bag of outstanding foods. I love this case study because it's an example of, I think, what a lot of emerging brands are really trying to do. Before Crisp, Outstanding Foods was regional in Southern California. But by demonstrating strong sales numbers across a range of formats from grocery to convenience stores, they were able to make the case with data to buyers to roll out region by region. And now you can find them across thousands of stores all around the country. But now once they achieved that growth, they had to make sure that they stayed in stock. So they utilize our voids dashboard to detect those situations where sales have stopped or stalled, making sure that they keep on shelf and making sure that they stay in customer hands. And then the next highlight, I want you to meet No Evil Foods. This is a customer actually using the platform and data to optimize literally every part of their business. So with aggregated sales data across the retailer partners, they've gone from regularly missing plan to creating an operational plan with 99% forecast accuracy, which is incredible. They're keeping an eye on store performance using our store retention dashboards to identify if any situations where stores have eased up on ordering or they're in potential danger of losing that location. And I love this quote from their account manager because it's spot on. Products can easily get lost on the shelves with hundreds of other brands. Crisp helps us stay top of mind with retailers to maintain stock, and that makes our business just very cool. So I think we will get to the point that like everyone came here for today. A conversation with Mike from Midday Squares. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Samantha, Jordan, thank you so much for having me on. Very, very much appreciated, and excited to be a part of one of these. I've sat in on quite a few, so this is exciting for me as well. So I'm Mike, the VP of Sales over at Midday Squares. If you're not familiar with Midday, we are a Canadian company headquartered out of Montreal. We started in 2018 and really launched in the States a little over a year and a half ago. And if you've heard of us, it's likely because of the content that we put out on really all social channels. And it's one of the things that makes Midday really special is we try to humanize that touch point with consumers and share the good, the bad, the ugly about building this business. So Jake, Les, and Nick are our founders. You see them raw and emotional, and it really resonates well, and is pretty different from what a lot of CPG companies are doing on a social channel. But in terms of the product itself, we are a functional chocolate bar. Think a protein bar and a chocolate bar have a baby, you get a midday square. Non-GMO, fair trade, kosher, vegan, plant-based, really clean label. And I might be biased, but it tastes fantastic.
So good. So good. So Mike, you are obviously joining us because you're a current Crisp user.
Yes.
Do you mind kind of telling everyone a little bit about like a day in the life of using Crisp at midday?
Yeah, a day in the life is no different than a day in the life of a startup. It's kind of like what the current fire is, or what the current challenge is, kind of leads you down the path of where you go. So, I think the great part about Crisp for us, and what has really worked well, is it gives us access to the information we need when we need it. So a day in the life could be looking at retail performance and understanding who's up, who's down, why are they up, why are they down. Checking voids. You mentioned voids. That's a huge one, especially as we're rolling out, understanding if we're actively selling in the places that we should be selling. And then inventory, is another huge one for us, being relatively new to the US. We need to make sure that we have product available that can get out to stores when the stores need it. So from there, it's really about, dispersing that information, whether it's me actioning on it or sharing it with internal or external parties in a quick, easy snapshot visual way, so that the info can get to the people that need it to action against it.
Yep. So who on the team uses Crisp at midday?
Yeah, great question. It's cross-functional. Obviously, sales, we heavily use the information and are in the platform quite frequently. Our supply chain team also uses it often, especially as we're checking POs that are coming in. Are they adequate? Does a specific DC need more volume if they're sitting light on hand inventory? As well as marketing and finance too is getting into it more.
Awesome. What type of insights do you find incredibly impactful utilizing the tool that maybe were really challenging to get at before using Crisp?
Yes, this is a great question. I mean, the one that's top of mind for us is probably inventory and voids. For us, we're a short shelf life product, so we need to make sure we aren't oversending product to a DC, and we also need to make sure that as a new brand, we have adequate inventory in a DC to send to retail. So that's a really big piece that we didn't really have line of sight to. We had access to the information, but it just took so long to try to get to the insights that we really needed. And then voids is a big one. With the expansion, I think any brand can relate to this. You get really excited about closing a new retailer, and the launch day finally comes, and you think you're in all stores, but surprise, you're actually in 50%. So without that line of sight, it costs money to launch a product. Retailers have expectations on what you're going to contribute, and this is a way, and the data is a way to say, we signed up to support your business, and we're only in 50% of stores. So it allows to get really tactical with the information. And those are just a few. I mean, there's so many different examples.
Yeah, you mentioned something really interesting that we hear all the time. You have the data available, but it was really hard to get at. We see that this is actually a reason that a lot of emerging brands especially just bypass using data at all. Can you talk a little bit about how the use of data has transformed since using the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot more streamlined than anything. And there's the cliche term out there that's speed to insights, but that's really exactly what it is.
Yeah.
We're a lean team at Midday, and I think a lot of other startup brands are also very lean.
Yeah.
We don't have the time to give the data a bath and get it clean to the point where we can analyze and assess. We need to get immediately to the insight so we can drive action and affect change, and whether that's at the broker, distributor, retailer level. The streamlined data allows us to be a lot smarter with where we're spending our time, how we're spending our time, and really just improving performance. Because at the end of the day, it's a win across the board if we're selling more product to the retailer and the retailer selling more product for the distributor, higher commission for the broker. Like, it's everybody is on the same page, but you can't measure what you don't track, and that's really what allows us to be really smart about how we approach different issues.
Yeah. So how are you using the data you're pulling out of Crisp to really drive sales, like in sales stories, and drive that distribution growth?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few pieces with how we can segment the data in Crisp. We can use similar store sales as whether it's velocity benchmarks or case volumes to go in and say, we can turn X amount of product in your stores, because we're doing it currently with another competitor. I think the other interesting piece with Crisp as well is when you look at that US map, depending on what data you're bringing into your subscription, you can start to pinpoint, what regions or states or zip codes do we have high online orders in. That can guide us then to say, there's demand here for you, retailer X. We see it from the number of orders that we're receiving online. Blanket in or bucket in another retailer in that area where you're performing well at. It just allows you to minimize the risk that buyer on the other side of the desk has when they're looking at you as a brand. I mean, if they're going to place a bet on you and your brand, you want to make them feel as comfortable as possible that you're going to be a success when they're on that shelf.
Yep, totally. One thing that comes up all the time with emerging brands and challenger brands is like, when is the right time? What's the trigger? When do I know that I need to start utilizing data, leveraging data? So what triggered you to kind of look at Crisp, and what did that decision-making process look like?
Yeah, great question. And it's different for everyone, but I can speak for Midday, from the founders on down and everybody in the organization. We're very data driven. So, I was fortunate enough to come in and be in an organization that values data and information and are willing to make an investment into the data and information. So for us, it was really day one. And I think it's one of the exciting things for Midday. We have a ton of momentum as a brand, and in large part due to the content and media that we're putting out. It also happens to be a really good product, taste wise. And then you look at the ingredient panel, and it's a clean label, on trend with consumers. So for us, when you have those two pieces, or three pieces really, the next iteration is like, how can we take ourselves from being a really hot product right now to being more of a category thought leader, with staying power, really more than anything, and change the conversation and dialogue that we're having. And you can't do it without data. So for us, with access to the information, when it's leveraged correctly, in combination with all those other things, it's a special recipe. So for us, like we knew day one coming in, like we need to make some investments here to be really, really smart in terms of who we approach, how we approach, when we approach, why we approach expansion.
Yep, absolutely. Do you mind sharing a little bit about, like, there's other options out there. What drew you to Crisp? Why Crisp? And maybe share a little bit about your experience working alongside our team so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have some insights experience in my background. So I was all too familiar with the less than friendly data files that come from UNFI.
Yeah.
So for us, there is some incredible information in the reports that are available through UNFI. But like I said before, we just don't have the time to spend against getting the data ready to analyze and get to those insights. So I heard that Crisp was a preferred partner with UNFI. So I booked a demo and it just kind of went from there. But I think the thing that I've really appreciated most about Crisp is anyone that I've interacted with, and I've interacted with quite a few folks on the Crisp side, we're besties. There's a passion for the platform and a passion to see your business win. So the brand's business win. And anytime there's an opportunity for feedback, or if I see something like, hey, this might be cool to add in, the team is always open to that feedback and always open to that continuous improvement to make the platform better, not only for you, but for all their partners in their portfolio. So yeah, it's been a really, really great partnership so far. We're grateful for it. And we just thank you, Crisp team, for all the help and support you've given us so far.
Hey, Mike, I have a quick question for you too.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the people listening might be on, smaller teams. How easy, and you mentioned the complexity of like getting into data, having to clean it up before you can even look at it. How quickly are you able to like jump into the platform, pull the data that you need, and be able to make decisions based on that?
I mean, within seconds is the answer, but it all depends on what that question is. So for instance, I use notifications on the platform. So I get a notice if a specific retailer is declining. From there, I can immediately go into the platform, filter to that retailer, and then start going through my checklist. Is it a store that's no longer selling? Is it a drop in velocity? If it's a drop in velocity, is that due to a missed delivery or slower consumer pull? So you can get to the information quickly and just page through in a way in how the platform's structured to identify like what those challenges are.
Okay, no, that's good to know. I've seen that when I've looked through the platform as well. It has like very simple, and we'll see it during the demo later, but it has like very simple dashboards where you can get to the information, but then you can go like infinitely deep into like the nuances of the data, like an individual store for an individual day. So it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been incredibly beneficial for us.
I love that. That was great question. Thanks, Jordan. Any other questions before we kind of transition maybe over to the demo?
And as to the audience as well, does anyone have any questions? Feel free to drop those into the chat, and we can ask those to Mike. For those of you who haven't met Mike before, I think we actually met like 3 years ago. In Chicago, but Mike's had a ton of experience working with Red Bull, IRI, RX Bar. I think we met right when you were leaving RX Bar, Clio Snacks, and now Midday Squares. So a bunch of power hitter brands. So you've seen it all when it comes to sales and data. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a fun ride for sure.
Doesn't look like we have any questions right now, Samantha. So we can hop into the demo.
Sounds good. Mike, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah. Tony, we are going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, I'm in the platform. Kind of give a quick overview of some of the things that you can see in here. And then I'll jump into a little bit of the use cases that both Mike and Samantha and even Jordan kind of hit on as we were talking about what we offer here at Crisp. So kind of a quick lay of the land of what we have here. You'll notice within the dashboard, you can navigate up here between different connectors, whatever you have connected. So a connector being UNFI, KeHE, Target, whatever the retailer distributor that you're connected to. Within there, we have our list of dashboards that are available for each single one of those. Start out in the sales dashboard. But the nice thing about the platform is that the look, the feel, the layout, it's very, very similar as we go across those different dashboards. And even as we go across from a distributor to a retailer connector. So everything's going to start out with this overview. So that 30,000 foot view of what's happening at a high level, understanding your sales in this case, broken down at the same time by product. As we go below that, we'll always have our driver section. So this driver section is going to start off with that heat map to understand where sales, velocity, distribution are stronger across the country compared to other states and regions. And then we have that next layer that you're generally going to want to filter by. So this is the section that can change as we go across these. But for UNFI, we have different things by city, by the recognized UNFI channel, the different chains within those channels, all the way down to the DCs as well. And then down at the bottom, we have our full details. So it's going to be that lowest level of detail that we would be pulling the data. So store level, item level, in this case, sales and shipment information. Any of these tables that you see, all you have to do is hover over them. You can hit these three dots. And now if I need it in Excel, I need to share it, need to do anything with it, I can do that very, very quickly. As I go back up to the top, you kind of notice that we have some different things that you can filter by. So we start out with a different time selection. Default is the last 12 months. But if you want to see the last 13 weeks, the last 4 weeks, or a particular date range, or after a certain time period, because you're tracking post-reset, post-product launch, you can do all of that as well. And then you also have the ability to filter based on product, channel, chain. But I personally think a lot of the power is down here as you can select different items. So if I'm digging into these very generically named flavored almond milk number 65 and 66, I can just hold down Control, click on each of those, and now I have the sales for both of those items, all the way down to the details. So everything's updated. I can cross filter. If I need to know what's happening in the supermarket chain, because I need to know, well, what are my best chains within that supermarket chain channel, I have them listed here. And now I want to know, well, what are my best DCs that Stop and Shop is pulling from? I can cross filter and keep drilling my way down to really get to whether it's the root of the problem or even a store level list of where my strongest store item combinations are for this subset of selections I've made. I can also say, I'm coming back to this. I'm going to check on this every single week because these are new products, or we're doing promotions, so I need to track these. I can always save this view, this look, this bookmark, whatever you want to call it, by coming up here, deciding what I want to call it, and then deciding who gets to see it, whether it's private, or just I, the creator, have access to it. Account would be everyone who's access to the account, and then also specific people. And that specific people could be a list of people who have access to it already, or you could type in an email from someone outside of your org where they could then see a read-only version of this bookmark essentially to come in and see that. So if you're sharing it with your broker, the buyer, or the retailer, even whatever that looks like, they could come in and see it and understand what you're looking at so you can see it side by side as you're having those conversations. It's quick and easy to navigate back to them through the My Reports function. To come type it in, I can search the reports that were shared with me, my reports, and even go into the details of what is filtered in those reports to get at it. When I'm done with any of these selections, because I'm moving on to my next problem, I can just hit that X, back my way out. Pretty instantly, I'm back to where I started, drilling into my next problem. There's a lot of things on here that you can feel like is at times overwhelming from the amount of data. But the nice thing is you can just keep clicking your way through to drill down to the details that you need without breaking any of it. So if I'm trying to, again, we'll say Stop and Shop. If I'm trying to expand within this retailer for my distribution, because maybe we don't have all of our products out of here. Well, the first thing I do is check on Stop and Shop, and maybe we're focused on this particular DC that we're selling out of. Well, now I need to know what products are in that DC and where are we selling as well. Now I have just that DC selected, and I come up here and check what products are in that DC, knowing that as you're trying to expand your distribution for these retailers, it's a different conversation if you're coming from a distributor of whether that product's in that DC today or whether you have to get that additional slot placement in the DC to then get it into those stores. So it's easy to kind of drill my way through and switch back and forth between what I'm looking at to really get at those solutions. And again, I have this list where if I need to know what products are in there today and what our store counts are, I can export it and go from there. It's also great as you're, really trying to understand, where do I want to go as I'm expanding distribution or launching new products. So maybe in this case, we want to look at velocity for that. So now I'm in the velocity dashboard. It's going to look and feel very similar to what we saw with that sales dashboard, but a few changes. So we can see the cases shipped per store per week over time is going to show up. So you'll see this line graph to understand, how are we seeing our performance change over time as we're running promotions, as products are seasonal. What does that look like? I just talked to a customer earlier this week who used this dashboard to understand, well, when did the UNFI customers stop purchasing this last year for a seasonal item? To know, well, that's the point in time we need to stop shipping UNFI, because we don't want to be stuck with products in the DC when our customers are no longer ordering from UNFI for the seasonal product. To be able to track things like that. You can also just say, are there spikes? Are there seasonality spikes that maybe we didn't quite realize? Are there spikes that occur as you're seeing end of year changes or inventory structure builds and that kind of stuff, where you never know where these retailers might be buying at different time periods over the year? You have the heat map to understand your strongest states across these markets. Again, I could see just where are my strengths across this supermarket chain grouping within UNFI, and what does that look like from the heat map perspective, to understand where are my best states occurring, all the way down to my best cities if I need them, or my best chains. And if I want to see these chains based on who has the highest velocities or who has the most points of distribution they're going to, I can look at that and understand that. And we'll kind of keep with the stop and shop theme that we've started on here. And if I want to expand distribution for, maybe there's some products that we don't have in here today, and I want to know what are my best velocity stores for these similar products that exist. This is what I would use that for. I could come in here and maybe we want to expand, besides almond milk number 65, we want to go to the bigger, the 2-pack of this one. What are my best stores? Very quickly, 3 clicks, I now have a store list filtered by velocities of my best stores down here for this. So if I'm going to expand, hey, Stop and Shop, here's a list of the 30 stores where we know this will be successful. Let's start with this as the rollout, the test, to really do that. In the inverse, we've had customers use this to say, well, where are we struggling? Where are velocities too slow with this item? Maybe it was a new product launch and we have to do additional sampling in store. I now have that store list I want to focus on. Maybe we will go as far as say, things are really, really slow down here at the bottom. We don't want to have inventory in some of these stores. We want to focus on our top stores. We've seen some of that too, where it'll drive your velocities up by removing some of the tail and suggesting those stores to the retailer yourself. If I were to be, say, we already got this product sold in and we're tracking, what stores are we in? What is that store count? I can track those store counts and see how many stores have purchased over the time period I'm looking at. So some of our customers have used this as they're launching products to say, well, what was my store count when we did that free fill period? And we'll pull that time period to see who ordered then. And then when that free fill period closed, then how many stores ordered again? How many stores did not order again that should have? Well, let's follow up those stores. Let's have our team work with the Stop and Shop buyer or whoever it is to get those stores to do their second order where they can actually pay for it. It's good for tracking those things and kind of identifying that group of stores for when you're rolling out the next time. Maybe that's not included in some of these retailers that just ordered once for that free fill and didn't order again. It allows you to be really strategic with that data to kind of go in and go out of it. So from here, I'm going to jump over to our inventory dashboard, just to kind of give you a look at how to digest what's in the DCs at UNFI, or if we were in KHE, it would look very, very similar to this. So it's going to, again, be at high level. Where's your inventory by product, your inventory by DC? What is your inventory a little bit more detailed by product? So my dollars on hand, my quantity on hand. We do a calculated weeks of supply and also let you know what is currently on order on those POs, schedule, and those DCs. From here, I can look at the heat map to understand, are there any DCs that are very, very low on weeks of supply? Or the details by DC, again, those same metrics, dollars on hand, quantity on hand, weeks of supply, quantity on order. Well, is there anything that's just a little bit higher than the rest? Right? In this case, I'm not going to be particularly nervous about 3.6 weeks of supply. But as we get down to these and I can understand there's only 1 week's supply, it's good to know that there's quantity on order, that there's products coming in. If we come back up here and imagine instead of 3.6 weeks, it was more like a 10 weeks of supply, where that's more than we really want in the DC right now. I can come back up here, look at this by product, and this is where maybe if this was more like a 16 weeks of supply, we'd have a conversation with UNFI and say, hey, let's adjust this order for these 32-ounce energy drink. Let's find another DC to go to that needs to get this back in stock. Or maybe we delay it a couple of weeks because we want to see if we are actually selling this product down and getting to a more comfortable weeks of supply to look at that and understand that. Again, we still have that full detailed information where you can really see your quantity on hand by product, by DC, those exact same metrics broken down by your dollars, your quantity, that average on hand, weeks of supply, quantity on order. So really easy to get at those details and understand the health of your inventory within, whether it's UNFI's supply chain, even Walmart's supply chain, even Walmart store inventory level detailed information, we can get at that too. So I'm going to go out of the distributor data sets and we're going to really quickly jump into Whole Foods. I'm going to jump into the velocity dashboard, mostly to show you that I was telling the truth when I said these look very, very similar. So I'm going to adjust my time period here and pull the data, and you'll see now we're talking that POS information. What's going through the register? What are those velocities through the register at the different stores, different Whole Foods regions? This is where you'll see the differences of up here. It's pretty much the same. We're going to have our product listing show up here in just a second. Of what are my velocities across these products? My heat map to know where are my strongest states within the Whole Foods network that we're selling, to understand if we don't, maybe there's some other regional retailers to focus on in the Northeast because that's where our strength is. Or maybe within Whole Foods, we need to do some more sampling or advertising in these areas where things are a little bit slower, as well as knowing what are my best regions within Whole Foods, knowing that this is how they roll out a lot of their tests, roll out some of the new product launches, to really see and understand that. Again, if I want to see a particular group of products and then see what these are, I could just hold down control and select those products. And then Mike mentioned a few times our voids dashboard. So this is where we kind of take that data and we take it a step further and put a layer of predictive analytics on here. So we look at your historicals of the velocity, the overall sales numbers, where these products are selling, what stores, all of that to really predict based on that where we think your product should be selling. So if we predict that you should have seen a sale for a store level, item level combination, and you did not see that, we're going to classify it as a void. So this voids report is going to capture things like traditional out of stocks, where you have none on hand, your shelves are empty. It's a barrier for your customers to purchase. It's also going to grab things that traditional out of stock reporting struggles with, like ghost inventory and phantom inventory, where the store inventory system thinks you have a certain amount on hand, but you really have none. And that is, in my experience, scarier than out of stocks because there's no way for the automatic replenishment systems in the stores to get those products from the DCs into the stores. So it's going to track these voids over time to understand how are we trending? Are there spikes we're seeing that are in certain time periods? Where are we headed now? What were our voids last week? How does that compare to last 4-week average? You can see this across all your products. What products are really driving these voids? How are they trending for the last 4 weeks? Again, a heat map and details by state and city to see, was this transportation driven by some weird things happening in part of the country or weather related things that made sense for barriers where people weren't able to shop or something like that. And you can also see this across multiple retailers where we do this because we know if you have your internal or a third-party merchandising team that's going to work the stores, work product from the back room, or do anything like that, they are generally very state and region based to work those stores, not necessarily based in a particular retailer. So you can go across those. You can also click on one of these to filter it. And then down here is really the money in the report, the spot where you can go and get that quick ROI and have those proactive conversations with the buyers, where I can look at this and see what retailer are we talking about? What's the store name? What's the store number? What product is it we're looking at? How many weeks has it been since this physical product sold in this physical store? And what is my average weekly dollar velocity for this product in this store? So this column right here, you can take that and you can look at that as your opportunity that you and the retailer lost out on last week because there were no products available to sell. You can also look at this and say, some of our customers, they first get in here, they'll say, let's grab the chunks of stores within Whole Foods that are more than 4 weeks since the last sale. And let's work with the buyer to say, hey, do we need to increase your orders from UNFI? Do we need to increase your safety stock or add an additional facing or increase the presentation minimum so you have more product on the shelf to make up for all these delays that are happening in transportation, where we know lead time is increasing from the DCs to the stores. They're not getting as many trucks. It's taking longer to refill the shelves. So how can we have these proactive conversations with the buyers, the inventory teams, even the distributors to keep your product in stock, rather than the inverse, which I think we've all probably dealt with, where the buyer gets a picture from a district manager who got a picture from a store manager of an empty shelf or an empty end cap, that you have to kind of panic to go and refill those shelves in the stores. This way, it lets you be proactive with those conversations to really work hand in hand with the buyers and the retail teams to keep your product in stock and selling and in your customers' hands at the end of the day. That's kind of the quick overview of the platform and of the demo. Jordan, do you have any questions as we went through this?
Yeah, so a question that came up, do you track inventory at 3PL or fulfillment centers as well as those that aren't connected to DCs?
So right now, we're really focused on tracking that inventory that is in the distributors' warehouses as well as the retailers' warehouses. So it's focused on that data that's coming from those retail and distributor portals. Now, not saying down the road we wouldn't be able to track some of those 3PL stuff. It's just not something we currently do. Now, we definitely have some customers that will take this data and they'll pair it up with that, where they can pull it out of the platform and understand as a whole what their overall inventory looks like across all of the chains, channels, and networks that they have.
Okay, awesome. And then do you integrate in with, I know you have an integration with like Amazon Seller Central, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you also integrate with the company's like Shopify sales as well?
Yep. Yeah. So we have Shopify dashboards that look very, very similar. I think the biggest difference, instead of like stores and like a distribution from that aspect, it's really looking at unique customers.
Okay, awesome.
All
I think
right.
those are the questions that we had that came in through the chat right now.
I'll jump back in here.
Cool. So as we kind of wrap up today's workshop and move into, the final few minutes, if there's no Q&A, I just want to share a few exclusive benefits to the Food Bevy network of clients. What I've really loved as I've watched Jordan communicate with this community is he's so, like I said, invested in making emerging brands and founders successful. Mike also reiterated that message, that that's exactly what we care about here at Crisp as well. We're very deeply invested in your success. So part of this is that data strategy consultation. We really want to understand your business, your goals, your challenges, roadblocks, initiatives, so that then we can really tailor your experience in the demo environment, as well as in the product with a 60-day free trial, specifically to help you achieve those goals. So perks include that 60-day free trial and exclusive reduced pricing as well. Like Jordan mentioned, he'll be following up on Monday with some more information.
This is so great, Samantha, and I really appreciate you, partnering with you on this, because I think this is amazing information that I wish I had when I was running T-Squares. It would have made issues so much. I shared, some of you have heard before, how we were selling.
I think we lost you there.
Yep. How about now? Can you hear me still? Am I back yet?
Yep, you're back.
Okay. I don't know why I wasn't even on mute. What I was just saying is that this is incredibly valuable. I wish it was information that I had. I think I shared with a number of you a story where we were selling our product through KeHE, and one of the customers was buying product that was wasn't selling well, but they also weren't communicating with us. And after analyzing our data after like 6 months, we realized they were returning 30% of all the product that we sold them. And we had to pay for that, and it was expired inventory, so it was just thrown away. And then we had, we knew there was some, but we didn't realize the volume that it was affecting our business. And so just having that information at your fingertips can help you be proactive, like has been mentioned the entire time. So Samantha, Tony, Mike, appreciate you all sharing your insights in here. I also want to open it up to questions from the community. It can be questions about the platform, questions about how it might work for your brand or other brands that you know. For this section, you can either drop your questions into the chat and I can ask those, or if you want to come up on stage, you can just hit the raise your hand button or just come off of mute and ask your questions directly to the team or to Mike and get those answered for you. So I want to open it up. Anyone have any initial questions?
Jordan, I have a question if it's all right.
Go for it, Morgan.
Morgan. Yeah, so amazing platform and great job. I mean, one of the hardest things in the CPG space is getting insight into your demand from all these DCs, right? And so we work a ton with small to medium-sized CPG brands. And so I guess my question is kind of what's the, like, do you have APIs, and do you plan on helping some of these younger brands get insight as they launch into the DC kind of area, right? So that, you know, I see the full, I mean, it's just a great platform. You see all of those. I guess I'm trying to like understand is the tech stack. I'm trying to understand, like, you know, a lot of these are in 3PLs, selling on Shopify first and Amazon first, right? And so how do they take, when they launch into the DCs, like where are they tracking a lot of this and getting insight across their full supply chain is, I guess, my question. Like, and is that something that comes up, you know, as you're going down market a little bit?
Yeah, so I think we cover that in a few ways where we offer a view that would show like your distributors in one view to understand your sales as a whole across KeHE, Unify, Dot, CNS, like so on, right? Everything that's connected, you can see high level sales, what is ebbing and flowing as who's selling the most, what's that percentage breakdown, combining all my products across that to understand that as you're first getting in there and what that looks like. We also have what we call our outbound connectors, where you can take these large data sets that we have, and you can either take them as we generate them from the actual retailer distributor portals, or you can take our normalized data sets that we use to power our own dashboards, and you can get those piped directly into whether it be Excel or Power BI, all the way up into Snowflake, Azure, any of those major cloud storages to kind of combine your internal data with that external data in whatever cloud storage you want to use.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I mean, we may have several clients that we could send your way that just, they don't do demand planning, like, to be blunt. Like, they don't like have insight into sales velocity across multiple channels. And that's like, you know, to determine what you're going to produce, what you're going to order, what you're like, if you don't have these numbers, it's really hard for these younger companies to scale.
We found that there's a lot of success because it de-silos this data, and you no longer have the barriers of just the one salesperson who has access to the data that they have to figure out how to pull it from the platform. It's
Right.
now in this platform where we offer, you know, credentials to everyone in your company. So my finance guy can come in and check out my Unify chargebacks and understand what's going on from that aspect of it. Our demand planning team can come in and pull to understand what do we sell by warehouse for the last 3 weeks or whatever we're looking at, without having to lean on the salesperson to really have to be the expert in the data anymore.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thanks, Jordan, for letting me ask the question.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions? So I think you all did a very thorough job. I think if you have any other questions, feel free to add those in now. If not, what I'll do is send a recording of the presentation out to everyone on Monday, along with follow-up information, how to get in touch. But even if you're like not sure if this is the right fit for your brand or when it is, I recommend you set up a call with the Crisp team to definitely take advantage of it. As they mentioned, there's a 60-day free trial. That way you can actually put it into practice for your business to see the impact in real time and make a decision that way. I think this is a really cool opportunity. It's better to get this information now and start collecting data so you can make better impacts and insights on your business. And you might uncover ways you probably will uncover ways to either make more money or save money along the process. So it'll actually pay for itself. So with that, thanks so much, Samantha, Tony, and Mike, and everyone have a great weekend.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Christine.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Bye.